Welcome to the Survivor to Thriver show with your happiness expert, Samia Bano. Do you feel stuck, silent, and stressed? Is something hurting your heart and soul? Are you burning yourself out? If so, you are in the right place because this is the podcast people from all over the world join in to learn exactly how to stop suffering and start living with inner peace and joy. Let's get started. Hey, for the last so many weeks, we have been talking about forgiveness and all kinds of issues related to the challenges of our being able to forgive. The challenges that can really prevent us from letting go of our anger and hate towards others when others have hurt us, when we have experienced some kind of injustice at the hands of others. And of course, we have been also talking about the solutions as to how we can overcome those challenges, transform those challenges, find the opportunities in those challenges, the opportunities for our learning and growth. We've been talking about all of this for the most part in the context of, like I said, when someone else has hurt us, when someone else has done a wrong, an injustice that has impacted us. But what about when we ourselves are the wrongdoers? Or at least we feel ourselves to be so. We believe ourselves to be the wrongdoers. We believe that whatever happened was our fault. What then? For many of us, forgiving ourselves is much, much, much harder than being able to forgive others. You know, I remember when I was going through the beginning stages of my healing process, healing from my experience of being a survivor of child sexual abuse. I used to have a lot of anger and hate and blame and judgment, and it was all directed towards myself. Well, if not all, a lot of that hate, anger, blame, judgment, I directed it towards myself. I would, say things like, think things like, well, this is my fault. This is my fault because I was too weak. I was so pathetic. I failed to do anything. I failed to do anything to protect myself, to save myself. I didn't scream. I didn't shout. It was like, why didn't you scream? Why didn't you shout? If you had screamed, if you had shouted, if you had moved your body to try to stop the person, to run away from that person, when in those moments when that person, came and was engaging in that abusive behavior, maybe this wouldn't have happened. Maybe this wouldn't have happened. But you didn't. You didn't do anything to protect yourself. You're so pathetic. You're so weak. Maybe you wanted it to happen, and that's why you didn't do anything about it. And there was a part of me that, I'll tell you, this was one of the points that really messed with me, this idea of maybe there was a part of me that really wanted it. And that's why I let it happen. How horrible and disgusting is that? That I let it happen, that I wanted it to happen. How can I forgive myself for that? See, because my body, there was a part of me that always knew there was something very wrong with what was happening, but there was a part of me, my body, right, that was reacting, like where there was a pleasure response that was being stimulated in my body. It was very, very confusing for me, right? But it became part of the subject of the blame game and the shame, and the reason, one of the reasons for why I experienced so much shame and guilt. And so I absolutely judged myself in very, very harsh ways. And I did it way before anyone else ever judged me, at least knowingly, right? Because remember, I didn't come out, I didn't tell anyone about what had happened until many, many years after I had survived that trauma. So even though, yes, I mean, it's like, my gosh, I was 8 years old when I survived through that trauma of sexual abuse. So how, if I was having these thoughts of blame and judgment and shame and guilt, like they didn't just pop out of nowhere. I mean, obviously there was a context within which I had learned to think such thoughts, right? But nonetheless, the point right now that I really want to focus on is the fact that I was thinking those thoughts. However it was that I learned to think such thoughts, the fact of the matter was that I was thinking them. And the impact that it had on me was all that sense of shame and blame and guilt. So I myself believed that I had done something wrong, that I had done what had happened was like I deserved what had happened to me. So how do you forgive yourself when you blame yourself? Why? Why is it so much harder for us to forgive ourselves? It's because our perspective of ourselves is so completely and utterly unique. No one else knows me the way that I know myself. No one else has the perspective about me that I have on myself. I'm with myself 24/7 like no one else is. Right? Every mean thought that I've ever had in my life, I know when I've had it. Even if you didn't know that I've had the thought because I didn't verbalize it, I still know I had that mean thought and it had an impact on me. Right? Every time I had a hateful thought, every time I had feelings of anger, of judgment, of hate, or jealousy, I knew that. I was aware of what I was feeling, even if you weren't. Every time I set an intention and I failed to honor it, I failed to keep my word to myself, you may not know how many times that has happened, but I know that about myself. So when we're judging, You see, when we're judging ourselves, I have access to information and that no one else does. So is it surprising that when we judge ourselves, we often will arrive at very, very different conclusions about ourselves than anyone else? And see, sometimes, and it's not even just that I have different information, much different information than you do. The other challenge is that it's actually also very difficult for us to be objective about ourselves. Okay? I mean, we just have a level of emotional involvement with ourselves, and we have a level of such high investment in our image of ourselves and the way that we, like our self-concept, our ego, right? I mean, it's such a huge factor, such a huge influence, that it makes it very, very difficult for us to be objective in our judgments about ourselves. Now, sometimes we will judge ourselves to be much better, and we will judge ourselves much more lightly in terms of, if you have made a mistake. When I make that mistake, like sometimes when I'm judging myself, I'll be like, oh, that was no big deal. But if someone else makes that same mistake, I may get up all in arms and really, really upset when someone else makes exactly the same mistake, right? Because we judge ourselves very differently than other people. But just as we can overestimate our abilities, overestimate our goodness, we can and underestimate the gravity of the mistakes that we make. The opposite is also true. When we really begin to judge ourselves with a negative bias, and we oftentimes have a very negative bias towards ourselves, when we judge ourselves with that kind of negative bias, my gosh, we will judge ourselves more harshly than anyone else, right? We'll judge ourselves, it's like, it's quite horrible. I mean, we'll say things to ourselves that if anyone else said those things to us, we might find that enough of a cause to hate that person forever, or not want to have anything to do with that person, or get really, really upset and angry about what they've said to us. But we can say those things to ourselves all the time, and sometimes we don't even think about what we're saying, how vicious we are being to ourselves. And so it's like, whew, and it's like, it's just that challenging to be really objective about ourselves. So it makes it very, very difficult when we're negatively biased against ourselves to be forgiving. Now, the good news is that, look, even as we judge ourselves harshly, underlying the harshness of our judgments against ourselves, there's this feeling of anger, feeling of perhaps disappointment, feeling of other kinds of feelings. And the good news is that our feelings are our friends. Okay? Our feelings are our friends. So even when it seems like I'm having a negative feeling, that negative feeling is also my friend. It's actually trying to give me a helpful message. It's trying to tell me something about what I need so that I can meet that need and reestablish my sense of peace and happiness and contentment. So let's say I feel really angry at myself, and that anger is leading me to judge myself really harshly, right? So, if I'm feeling angry, then I know that there is a need that I have that's not being met, and that's why I'm feeling angry. So if I can help myself see that, then I can ask the relevant question, the best question in this context, which is, okay, all right, what is the need that I have? What's the need behind the anger? What's the need behind the anger? And like for me, when I was asking my heart about this, I was just thinking of just a recent incident that happened that made me feel a little bit angry with myself. And I won't get into the details of it because it's not entirely relevant right now. So I checked in with my heart and I said, hey, heart, what's my need behind the anger? Why am I feeling the sense of anger towards myself? And my heart said, it's because we need to do better. We need to do better. We need to accomplish more. You're not living up to your own expectations. You're not living up to your own values. That's not okay. It's like I disappointed myself. I disappointed my best self, my heart, who had better expectations from me. See, my heart knows, my best self knows exactly what I'm capable of, what my full potential is. But I didn't follow their guidance. I didn't follow their guidance, and I shortchanged myself. And I took the lazy route, the easier route. I didn't live as my best self. And that generated anger. Anger within me towards myself. But once I understood that, that's the issue. Like, okay, all right. So now that I understand that this is the need that I have, my need is to live in more alignment with my own full potential, my own full capacity, with live out the guidance, the wisdom of my heart, my best self, much more consistently. All right, okay, if that's the need I have, so I can accomplish more. See, we all have a need for accomplishment, right? So it was like, okay, all right, so then that's what I have to do. So I course corrected and I did what was needed to bring myself back into alignment with my values, into alignment with the vision of my best self, my heart, and voila. Once our needs are met, the messenger's job is done. The feelings are the messengers. Now their job is done, and then the feeling resolves itself. See, and here's the cool thing, that once you begin to even take action towards meeting those needs, the feelings will begin to resolve themselves. Like, you don't have to wait until everything's perfect and complete and done before the feeling becomes resolved. That is like really, really great news, right? Because sometimes the needs that we have, they can take a while to be completely, fully met in terms of if, for example, we have a certain goal we are striving towards. It may take a little bit of time for us to fully accomplish that goal. But as long as we're striving towards it, towards it with honesty and good intentions and integrity, keeping in integrity with our values and our being, then there's no reason for the negative feelings to stay. They become resolved and they get replaced by the positive feelings, which are messengers that are letting us know, good job. You're doing something really good, something that's taking us in the right track, something that's helping us meet our needs, to keep doing more of this. All right. So with that thought, I'm going to go ahead, wrap up right here for today, and I just want you to think about this for yourself. Identify a challenge that you're currently facing, particularly in the context of forgiving yourself. What kind of things have you been saying to yourself that are harsh, that maybe are mean? Just that voice of the inner critic that we all have. What has it been saying to you? Right? Listen to that voice and go through this process yourself. Like, figure out, okay, what's the underlying need? Like, behind that critic's anger, behind that critic's or whatever other feeling that critic has. Like, you know what? Actually, that may be the first thing you need to do, is that a lot of times we're thinking all these thoughts and we don't even fully pay attention. We don't ground ourselves in the feelings that those thoughts generate, right? It's like, let's say you keep, it's like, I know just recently I was working with a client, and she was sharing with me that one of her negative thoughts, inner critic thoughts, is that I'm ugly, I'm fat, I'm ugly because I'm fat, and she's like having this thought, like, she thinks it a lot. She thinks it so much, she has been thinking it so much, in fact, that it's become really normalized for her. It's become so normal for her to think that thought that to some extent she didn't even immediately recognize it as being part of a pattern of negative thoughts that is having a really negative impact on her sense of self-esteem, on her sense of self-respect. And it was like, no, first of all, it's not okay to be thinking I'm ugly or calling yourself ugly. I mean, imagine if someone else called you ugly, how would that make you feel? Right? Now you're calling yourself ugly, like so often, so frequently, that you think it's completely normal. That's not okay. All right? So it's like, okay, well, when I think I'm ugly, well, how does that make me feel? Like, really connect with that feeling first. Once you've connected with the feeling, once you have identified, or the feelings that this negative thought generates, then be like, okay, well, every feeling means that there's a need, right? Negative feeling means that there is a need not being met. What are the needs not being met? Identify those unmet needs, and then begin to take action to meet those needs. Of course, if you find yourself struggling with this, do not struggle with it on your own. Please reach out for help and support. Remember, it's very hard for us to be objective about ourselves. So reach out for help and support, and you know that I'm one person you can reach out to. Just go to my website, www.academyofthriving.com. Click on the Contact Us page and you'll see exactly how you can connect with me. So until next time, I wish you lots of peace and joy.